My dad looked at my daughter and said, "She's sweet but she's not exactly bright like your niece." My sister smirked. My daughter went quiet, pushing her plate around. I took a sip of my water and said, "In that case, your star student can find another way to afford private school. Because my money's out." My sister choked on her wine. We were halfway through dinner when it happened. My dad was pouring himself another glass of red when he looked across the table at my daughter, Emma, who was quietly picking at her food. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. "She's sweet but she's not exactly bright like your niece." He didn't even look up. There was this second of silence, like even the walls were holding their breath. My sister, Claire, smirked into her wine glass like she'd been waiting for someone to say it out loud. Emma froze. Her fork hovered over her mashed potatoes, and she just sort of pushed them around like she didn't want to cry in front of anyone. I took a slow sip of water. I already knew what I was going to say. "In that case, your star student can find another way to afford private school. Because my money's out." Claire choked on her wine. Dad raised an eyebrow, finally looking at me like he'd just noticed I was there. No one said anything. Emma still didn't look up. "Here's the thing. I've paid for Claire's daughter's tuition at St. Madeline's for the last 2 years. That's 30 grand a year. Claire and her husband split up and she said she couldn't handle it alone, so I helped. I didn't do it because I'm rich. I did it because family meant something to me. But that night something flipped. I drove Emma home in silence. She stared out the window the whole way. When I pulled into our driveway, she asked if she really wasn't smart like her cousin. That was it. It wasn't just about the insult. It was that they had done it in front of my daughter, who had never been anything but kind, creative, and curious. She loved books, wrote stories, made little animations on her tablet. She just didn't test well and she was quiet. That's not a crime. I tucked her in, kissed her goodnight, and then I opened my laptop. I didn't sleep that night. By morning I'd pulled up records, contacts, strings I could pull. It turns out when you've been working in this city as long as I have, you know people. Admissions officers. Board members. Private school staff. One of my closest friends was now on the executive committee of St. Madeline's. The first thing I did was revoke the payment scheduled for Claire's daughter's spring semester. That afternoon Claire showed up at my office. She barged in without knocking. "You're seriously cutting off Lily because of one comment?" I told her it wasn't about one comment. It was about years of digs, little jabs, and pretending Emma didn't measure up. And she had the nerve to say this. "It's not my fault that everyone notices your daughter is stupid and not smart." I didn't say anything. I just opened my drawer and pulled out a file. Now things were going to get interesting. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I handed Claire the file and told her she might want to have a look before she started calling people stupid again. Inside were copies of every payment I had made to St. Madeline's on Lily's behalf. Receipts, confirmation emails, notes from her school counselor, even screenshots of the messages Claire had sent me begging for help back when her ex bailed on her. She flipped through it and her face got tighter with each page. That's when I told her I'd already spoken to the school and withdrawn all future payments. I'd explained the situation very calmly to my friend on the board. Told him I was done being taken advantage of. That's all it took. No more money, no more enrollment. Lily was going to be unenrolled within the week. Claire just stood there like I'd punched her in the chest. She called me selfish. Said I was ruining a child's future because of jealousy. I almost laughed. Jealousy? Of what? A niece who got praised for being able to recite SAT words while my daughter's kindness and imagination were treated like garbage. Then she said something that made everything crystal clear. "You're doing this because you know Emma will never get into a school like that." So I told her the truth. Emma had already been accepted into 2 elite art programs. She'd gotten an early acceptance to a charter school focused on digital storytelling, something Lily had mocked her for last Christmas. Claire's jaw actually dropped. But I wasn't finished. I reminded her that most of her recommendations for Lily had come from my contacts. Her ex was barely involved and she didn't have the network. Without me she had no leverage. No strings to pull. I was the one who got her daughter into the school in the first place. Now I was going to start pulling strings in the opposite direction. Claire didn't take it well. She stormed out of my office swearing I'd regret it. Said Dad would be furious. That night I got a text from him. Just one sentence. That was cruel. "He's just a kid." I didn't answer. I just blocked his number. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Emma was doing better, like something had lifted off her. But I knew Claire wouldn't stay quiet for long. And I was right. Because 3 days later someone broke into my email. Or tried to. And I had a pretty good idea who it was. The login attempt came from an old device I hadn't used in years. I got the security alert while I was brushing my teeth, and at first I thought it was just a glitch. Then I remembered something. Back when Claire's laptop broke, I'd lent her my old MacBook. The same one that had all my saved logins. I checked the timestamp. 2:14 a.m. Someone was trying to get into my email in the middle of the night, probably to find proof I'd tanked Lily's tuition or worse. Try to dig up dirt she could use. But I wasn't stupid. The second I gave her that laptop, I'd wiped everything clean. And just to be safe, I'd changed every password in my life last year after I caught her going through my purse at Thanksgiving. Still, that wasn't the part that got to me. It was that she was this desperate already. Later that day, I got a call from St. Madeline's. They'd officially dropped Lily from enrollment. Claire had apparently shown up at the front office yelling, demanding they take her back until June. And when they refused, she threatened to go to the press. They'd filed a report. My friend on the board told me, off the record, that the school was preparing a formal note about Claire's behavior in case she tried to apply to another top-tier institution. That was the moment I realized something. I could end this, or I could end her. For years I'd been the one everyone leaned on. I was the stable one. The successful one. The one who always bailed them out, smiled through the insults, sent the checks, hosted the holidays. And they saw it as weakness. But I'd made a lot of allies on my way up. And some of them owed me favors. I made 3 phone calls that week. One to a district director who oversaw private school accreditation in the county. One to a family lawyer I knew who had a personal grudge against Claire's ex. And one to a journalist who used to work with Claire back when she called herself a parenting columnist. I didn't lie. I didn't ask them to do anything shady. I just told the truth. The way Claire had manipulated people. The way she weaponized her daughter's gifted status to make everyone else's kids seem small. The way she got others to fund her lifestyle while she played martyr. The journalist in particular was fascinated. So when the article came out a week later, an op-ed titled "When Gifted Turns Toxic," a look into parental narcissism in elite schools, Claire knew exactly who had made it happen. She showed up at my door. No knock. Just fists on the glass like a cop raid. You think this is funny? You think you're some kind of hero? I told her I didn't think I was a hero. Just a mother who was done playing the fool. And that's when she said it. You think you won? Lily's getting into another school. He's got offers. We'll be fine. You're just jealous your daughter is average. I said good luck with that. Because by then I'd already called in the last favor. The one that would make sure her daughter wouldn't get accepted anywhere in the district. The person I called was an old college friend named Renee, now head of admissions consulting for a major placement firm in our state. She didn't owe me a favor, she owed me 2. Once for helping her out of a legal bind with a former client, and once when I got her son into a summer program he wasn't qualified for. I explained the situation calmly. Told her exactly what Claire had done, what she said about Emma, and how she tried to weaponize her daughter's education to humiliate mine. Renee didn't even hesitate. She said if Claire submitted Lily's name to any of the top private academies or magnet programs in the area, the schools would know. Not from her. From the network. See, what most people don't know is that there's an unofficial communication loop among schools. Headmasters talk, admissions heads swap names to look out for, especially for difficult parents. It's not illegal. It's just very, very effective. All it takes is one note. Difficult family, potentially litigious. Strongly advise against admission. That's it. By the end of the month, Lily's applications were dead in the water. Every school Claire applied to either ghosted her or politely declined. And the best part? She couldn't prove anything. Meanwhile, Emma had just started at her new school. Her art teacher emailed me personally to say she was one of the most imaginative students he'd ever had. But things weren't so rosy on Claire's side. With Lily out of school and no backup plan, Claire tried homeschooling, which lasted 3 days before she had a breakdown and dropped her off at our dad's house. She'd started missing work. Then came the eviction notice. Turned out she'd stopped paying rent trying to scrape together money for another private school deposit. But no one would take them. One night I got a text from an unknown number. It was a picture of Claire's apartment. Empty boxes, furniture dragged out, Lily sitting on the floor looking lost. No words. Just the image. I didn't respond. I knew exactly what that was. Claire was trying to guilt me. And it might have worked once. But not anymore. Because here's what she never understood. When you insult someone's kid, when you call a child stupid in front of their mother, you don't just start a fight. You start a war. And I wasn't done yet. It started with a photo, but it didn't end there. After the picture of the boxes and Lily sitting alone on the floor, Claire went quiet for a few days. I figured she was either regrouping or hoping the silence would guilt me into reaching out. I didn't. Then the emails started. They weren't to me, they were to people about me. One was sent to the board of the foundation I volunteer with. Another to a parent group at Emma's new school. She was trying to ruin my reputation, saying I was sabotaging a child's future out of jealousy, calling me unstable, petty, vindictive. She CC'd people she thought would be shocked, hoping it would spread. But the thing is, when you push a story too hard, when your desperation is bleeding through every sentence, people notice. The board chair forwarded me the email. So did one of the moms at Emma's school. Both of them said the same thing. We thought you should know. And don't worry, nobody's buying it. Claire didn't understand how alone she was now. I didn't just cut her off financially. I'd stopped covering for her. Stopped hiding her messes. And when someone like Claire loses their shield, they start to rot in public. Turns out she hadn't just relied on me for school payments. She'd borrowed money from at least 3 other family members and hadn't paid them back. Promised one aunt she'd help her sell her condo, then ghosted her after moving in temporarily. Used another cousin's name on a fake business application to get a grant. When the cracks started showing, people remembered everything. And Lily, while she wasn't doing great, I didn't enjoy that part. I really didn't. But Claire had built her whole world around Lily being the gifted one. When that fell apart, there was nothing else holding their lives together. I heard from someone in the admissions circuit that Claire even tried applying to schools out of state, but her reputation followed her. Renee hadn't just passed the message locally. She'd shared it with colleagues across regions. Claire had no idea how far my reach went. Then came the day I really knew she was done. A mutual friend messaged me saying Claire had started trying to sell Lily's gifted kid notes and test prep guides online. She was literally trying to package up her daughter's old academic records to help other parents get their kids ahead. It was humiliating. And desperate. Then finally the call came. I was at home cooking dinner when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was Claire. Her voice was quiet. No anger. No sarcasm. Just this worn-out version of itself. He said she was sorry. Said she didn't mean any of it. That she was overwhelmed. That she was scared. That Lily missed school. That they had nowhere left to go. I didn't say anything at first. Just let her talk. Let her apologize. Let her sit in it. Then I said, this isn't my problem anymore. She didn't respond. I think she thought she misheard me. So I said it again. You're nothing to me now. And I meant it. Because some bridges don't just burn, they collapse behind you. And when they do, the silence afterward is the most peaceful sound in the world. I didn't block Claire's number. I didn't need to. She never called again. There was no big final confrontation, no fireworks. That was the part no one talks about. How revenge doesn't always end with a slammed door or some cinematic scream. Sometimes it ends in silence, the kind that rings louder than anything you could yell. Over the next few months she faded out. I still heard things because that kind of failure doesn't happen in a vacuum. Claire had spent years trying to be someone in our community. Volunteering on school boards, throwing fundraisers, writing passive-aggressive posts about parenting with excellence. But she burned every bridge she had. The people who used to nod and smile when she bragged about Lily's test scores started ducking her in grocery store aisles. Someone told me she tried to start a tutoring business from her apartment. Except she had no credentials, no clients, and worst of all, no reputation left. The cousin she was crashing with eventually cut her off. I didn't hear why exactly, but I can imagine. Claire was the kind of person who made everything your problem, and once she realized nobody was rushing to help her fix it anymore, she started getting bitter. She'd post things online like, jealousy is a disease, or, sometimes the kindest people are the most betrayed. Meanwhile, Emma was flying. Not just surviving, actually flying. She got accepted into a 2-week summer digital art lab hosted by a nearby university. Made friends there. Got mentorship from a woman who worked in animation at a real studio. One afternoon I found a whole folder on her laptop titled, Worlds I Want to Build. Just sketches, maps, character bios, notes. Pages and pages of imagination. Nobody told her she wasn't smart. Nobody told her she was not like Lily. She was just Emma. And that was finally enough. What really stayed with me, though, was a moment that seemed small at the time. We were driving back from her summer program, and out of nowhere she asked, "Do you think people change?" I said sure. Then she asked, "What about people who say sorry but don't mean it?" I told her the truth. I said that kind of person doesn't change. They just get better at saying sorry. She didn't ask who I meant. She didn't have to. Weeks later I ran into Lily at a bookstore. She was alone, sitting on the floor in the kids section flipping through a graphic novel. She looked older, tired in a way a kid shouldn't. She saw me, hesitated, and gave me this awkward little wave. I waved back. I thought about walking over. About saying something kind, asking how she was. But then I remembered the way Claire used her daughter like a trophy, how she twisted her into a weapon, and how Lily stood there every time and said nothing. Maybe it wasn't her fault. Maybe it wasn't fair. But I wasn't here to fix that. Not anymore. Because the thing about burning bridges is that people always assume it's reckless. But sometimes, burning a bridge is the only way to make sure no one ever drags you across it again. They made their choices. And I made mine. Now it's quiet. And I like it that way.